Hello everyone, it's Khalid here again. Now we know where to put our codes from last lesson. Just as a freshener, I'm going to log into the projects area and choose the project we were working on last time so we can remember how we can access that. So I click on my name on the top right corner, I click on my projects, and it shows me all the projects that I've worked on, and I can start new projects. So this was the last project I started from the previous video. So today we're going to learn about the coordinates in the game lab so we know how to place our objects in the right place. So basically when we're drawing or making games, we need to put the characters or the shapes or the background shapes in the correct place. How can we tell the computer where to put the shapes on the screen? So today we're going to learn about the coordinates here. Now the coordinates here are very similar to the math coordinates, the x and the y, but there is a small catch to it. We're going to look at this screen here so we can understand it more. So if you can see, that's the x-axis, but the difference is on the y-axis, when you go down, it becomes more positive. When you go up, it becomes more negative. So for example, if I want to draw a point at 50 and 50, I go 50 to the right side on the x-axis, and then I go 50 down on the y-axis. So if I put the rectangle to be placed in 50 and 50, it's going to be placed over here. So this is how the rectangle is going to be placed on the display area. If I choose it to be in 150 and 200, so it's going to go to 150 and then it's going to go down to 200. It will be drawn in this area. It's important to remember that the top left corner of the rectangle is drawn on the point that you choose. So if you choose 150 and 200, the top left corner of the rectangle is going to be drawn at that point, and then the rectangle will be drawn accordingly. So let's try this in code.org. I'm going to use the blocks to make it easier. Here I can find the display screen, and on the display screen I can place the shapes where I want to using the coordinate. The more I go to the right side, the higher the x. The more I go down, the higher the y. I can use this grid to help me determine where I want to place my objects. This grid is divided into squares. Each square has a width of 50 and a height of 50. So if I go 4 squares wide, 50 by 4 equals 200. So 4 squares wide is 200 on the x-axis. 4 squares down is 200 on the y-axis, and so on. So let's try and draw two rectangles. To draw a rectangle, I grab this code, which is called the rect, and I place it inside the function draw code. And I'm gonna grab another one, rect, and I'm gonna place it inside of here. So the first two numbers are the coordinates, the x and y coordinates, and the second two numbers are the width and height. So let's start by placing the rectangle in the place that we want it to. So as we said, each square is 50. So if I want to place it in the middle of the screen, to start at the middle point of the screen, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 rectangles to the right, which is 200, and 1, 2, 3, 4 rectangles down, which is 200, which gets me to this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that gets me to this point, 200 and 200. So I'm going to write here 200 and 200 to see where the rectangle will appear on the screen. Now the size, I'm going to make it to be 50 and 50 because I want a small rectangle that would not take all the space up. The second rectangle, I'm going to try and draw it on the bottom right corner here. So to draw it on the bottom right corner, I need to either count the squares, or I can use my mouse, my cursor, to check the coordinates at the specific point I want to draw it on. I move my mouse to that specific point, and I would have the x and y coordinates appearing next to my cursor. So that's approximately 350 and 350. If I zoom in, it's supposed to be 350 and 350 if I put it at the cross, because the grid is divided into perfect squares. So I'm gonna put 350 and 350, and I expect the rectangle to appear on the bottom right corner. I expect one to appear here with the top left corner of the rectangle starting at the middle point, and one here with the rectangle covering the square on the corner. I'm gonna remove the grid. I'm gonna click on run. Now when I click on run, I see the code running on my screen. As I can see, as expected, this rectangle was drawn here. The other one was drawn covering the bottom left rectangle. I'm gonna activate the grid again so I can see it, and it's working as expected. So this is how we're gonna be using the coordinate system in code.org in GameLab to be able to place the objects where we want them to appear on our display screen. Okay, so remember, the top left is 0 and 0, X goes right, Y goes down. If you master this, you can place anything anywhere on the screen. Next time, we're going to start actually completing the lessons, drawing shapes, and building our first simple animation. And I'll see you in the next one.